The moment Daniel heard sirens approaching his peaceful suburban home, he froze. How could locking his own gate lead to this? Just hours ago, everything had been calm. Now, police cars lined the street, neighbors whispering behind trimmed hedges. And at the center of it all, Karen, the HOA president, standing on his driveway with her teenage son pointing accusingly toward him. He locked us out of our community property, she shouted, her voice sharp enough to cut the afternoon air. Daniel clenched his jaw. Our property? He'd owned this land long before the HOA even existed. It all began when Daniel installed a small iron gate at the side of his home, a gate that marked the edge of his legally owned property. The HOA had recently expanded their maintenance zone map, quietly claiming a strip of his land as community area. Daniel had tried reasoning with them, sending polite emails, even showing official documents. But Karen wasn't one to be proven wrong. Her pride was her power. Now her son had called 911, claiming Daniel was trespassing on his own land. The irony stung, but Daniel kept silent as the officer approached. Sir, the cop said, we received a report of property violation. Karen crossed her arms, smirking in victory. The sun beat down, the neighborhood watching like a live show. Daniel took a slow breath. Officer, he said calmly, before we continue, you might want to check who actually owns this gate. The next 5 minutes would change everything. The officer adjusted his sunglasses and looked between Daniel and Karen. Ownership papers? He asked. Daniel nodded, walking to his porch to retrieve the folder he had prepared weeks ago. He'd expected this confrontation. Karen's persistence had been escalating for months. Behind him, Karen muttered under her breath, he's bluffing. The HOA owns that boundary. Her son chuckled, recording on his phone like it was entertainment. Daniel handed over the documents, land deeds, survey maps, and even aerial images from the county office. The officer skimmed through, his expression slowly shifting from suspicion to confusion, then to quiet respect. Ma'am, he finally said, turning to Karen. These papers show this property line belongs entirely to Mr. Daniels. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Karen's smirk faded, replaced by a stiff smile that didn't reach her eyes. That can't be right, she said quickly. We've always maintained that area. Maintaining doesn't mean owning, Daniel replied softly, but firmly. You extended your boundary without permission. Her son frowned, lowering his phone. For the first time, the arrogance in his eyes wavered. Still, Karen wasn't done. You might have paperwork, she snapped, but we'll appeal this at the next HOA board meeting. Don't think you've won. Daniel simply nodded. Then I'll bring my lawyer. The officer sighed, realizing this wasn't over. As he left, Karen glared at Daniel one last time. You'll regret locking that gate, she whispered. Daniel didn't yet know how true that warning would become. By the next morning, rumors had spread faster than wildfire. Neighbors avoided Daniel's gaze during their morning walks, whispering behind fences. The HOA newsletter, written by Karen, of course, accused him of restricting community access and endangering neighborhood unity. It was pure manipulation, but it worked. People started believing her. Daniel tried explaining, but few listened. Even his longtime neighbor, Mrs. Harlow, said gently, maybe just unlock it, dear. You don't want trouble. He smiled politely but knew giving in would mean surrendering his rights. That evening, he found a notice taped to his mailbox, HOA violation, unauthorized structure on community property. His stomach sank. They were escalating. The next HOA meeting was packed. Karen stood at the front like a queen addressing her court, presenting edited photos and one-sided evidence. When Daniel walked in, the room quieted. I'm here to clarify the truth, he said calmly. He showed the same official documents again, this time to the entire room. A murmur spread. Some faces softened, others hardened. But before he could finish, Karen interrupted. Enough. We voted to fine you $5,000 for non-compliance. Gasps filled the room. Daniel's hands tightened. You can't fine me for what you don't own, he said. Karen smirked. We just did. Daniel looked around, some sympathetic, some scared. But he knew one thing: this fight wasn't about a gate anymore. It was about power. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The injustice burned quietly beneath his calm demeanor. He decided it was time to show the HOA and the neighborhood undeniable proof. He called the county survey office and requested an official re-inspection of his property lines. It would take a few days, but Daniel knew the truth would speak louder than Karen's influence. Meanwhile, Karen doubled down. She sent emails warning residents not to associate with the violator. Daniel watched from his window as once friendly neighbors crossed the street to avoid him. Even children stopped playing near his yard. The isolation was painful, but Daniel's resolve only strengthened. 3 days later, the surveyors arrived with their equipment. Karen appeared almost instantly, heels clicking on the pavement. "Oh, what's this?" she mocked. "Trying to stage a little show?" Daniel ignored her. The surveyor measured, mapped, and confirmed every inch. When he was done, he turned to Karen and said, "Ma'am, this fence line is fully within Mr. Daniel's legal boundary. HOA jurisdiction does not apply." Karen's smile vanished. Daniel caught the flicker of panic in her eyes. That night, Daniel received a new email, this time from Karen's lawyer, threatening further penalties. He sighed, knowing this wasn't just pride anymore. It was retaliation. But he also knew something Karen didn't: the county was now investigating her for falsifying HOA records. The truth was finally catching up. A week later, Daniel returned home to find the gate wide open. The lock had been cut cleanly. His security camera showed Karen's son laughing with friends as they entered his yard, claiming its community space again. Daniel felt anger rise but stayed composed. He called the police, not out of revenge, but to report property damage. Minutes later, the same officer arrived. "Didn't we settle this?" he muttered. As the officer began his report, Karen's SUV pulled up. She jumped out, pretending shock. "Oh, officer. He's harassing my son again," she cried. Before Daniel could speak, her son, nervous but defiant, pulled out his phone. "We're calling 911. The irony would have been laughable if it weren't so absurd. Within minutes, another patrol car arrived, sirens blaring. Neighbors gathered again, phones out, whispers swirling, but this time, Daniel was prepared. He calmly showed the footage from his camera. Every second was clear: Karen's son cutting the lock, laughing, and trespassing. The officer turned to Karen. "Ma'am, I'm afraid this footage tells a different story." Her face turned pale. You can't use that without my permission," she stammered. "Actually," Daniel replied softly, "I can. It's my property." The officer nodded. "I'm issuing a warning for trespassing. Any further interference, and there'll be legal consequences." Karen's son looked down, ashamed. For once, the crowd didn't cheer for her. They just watched in silence. Word spread quickly. The same neighbors who had doubted Daniel now started questioning Karen's leadership. Rumors of her mishandling funds and fabricating fines surfaced. The county's investigation confirmed her overreach. She had signed off on unauthorized HOA extensions for personal benefit. Within weeks, the board called an emergency meeting. Daniel didn't plan to attend, but curiosity got the better of him. When he walked in, the atmosphere was different. Karen looked exhausted, her usual confidence gone. The chairperson of the investigation stood and read the findings aloud. Misuse of HOA authority. Unauthorized expansion of jurisdiction. Forgery of boundary claims. Murmurs filled the room. Karen tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "I was just trying to maintain order," she pleaded. "You abused it," someone said from the back. For the first time, the community saw the truth. By the end of the meeting, Karen was officially removed as president. Her replacement, a fair-minded neighbor named Linda, publicly apologized to Daniel. "We owe you an apology," she said sincerely. Daniel nodded, his calm eyes reflecting both relief and quiet sadness. "I just wanted peace," he replied. The crowd clapped softly. The battle was over, but the emotional toll would take longer to fade. Weeks later, Daniel sat on his porch, the evening sun painting his property in gold. The new HOA had restored order, and the community slowly began to heal. One afternoon, a small knock came at his door. It was Karen's son. "Mr. Daniels," he said quietly, "I wanted to say sorry. I didn't know the truth." Daniel smiled, handing him a lemonade. "Takes courage to admit that," he said kindly. The boy nodded, eyes full of guilt. "Mom sold the house," he added softly. "We're leaving next week." Daniel's gaze softened. "Tell her I wish her peace," he said. The boy smiled faintly before walking away. That night, Daniel closed his own gate, for the last time before moving out himself. Not out of defeat, but completion. He had bought a cabin by the lake, away from HOA drama, where silence and nature ruled instead of paperwork and pride. As the camera would fade on his quiet smile, his words would echo, "Sometimes standing your ground doesn't mean fighting harder, it means knowing when to walk away." And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.